Tyler didn't knock. He just stormed into my office like he owned the air in the room, a smug grin already curling at the corners of his mouth. He had a manila folder in one hand, and that arrogant swagger he wore like cologne. I didn't stand up. He slapped the folder onto my desk and said, "Effective immediately. HR will handle the rest." Then he turned and walked right back out. No eye contact, no explanation, nothing. My name's Cal Becker. I'm 57 years old. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and until 30 seconds ago, I was the senior systems architect at Graybridge Technologies. 17 years in that chair. Not a warning, not a conversation, just one sentence and a file folder. I opened it slowly, half expecting some joke or typo. Nope, it was real termination notice. Signed and dated this morning, and the timestamp? Exactly 48 hours before my end-of-year bonus was due. 92 grand earned down to the last all-nighter and early morning code fix. I rubbed the bridge of my nose and read the rest. Buried in the fine print was the clause, Martin's clause. The old founder's legacy contract from over a decade ago. The one that linked my annual bonus to the intellectual property of Graybridge's encryption suite. The same suite they were trying to leverage in a $210 million merger with Cormermac Data. I'd written that software from the ground up. Martin made damn sure it stayed protected. From vultures, from incompetence, from exactly this. The clause wasn't common knowledge. Barely a handful of people ever knew it existed. But if the bonus was paid, the IP rights transferred to me. And once it triggered, there was no reversing it. By firing me 48 hours early, Tyler thought he was cutting costs, blocking a bonus. What he didn't realize was that he just activated the landmine buried in the paperwork he never bothered to read. I didn't say a word, didn't march down the hall, didn't raise my voice. I grabbed my mug, slipped my phone into my pocket, and stood up like I was heading out for lunch. Before I left, I pulled open the bottom drawer and took out the flash drive I kept for backups. I dropped it gently on my desk, right in the center. Decoy, empty, but it would keep him busy for a while. Then I walked out. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I didn't look back. Let them chase the wrong lead. Let Tyler gloat over an empty USB. In 48 hours, the real bomb would go off. And by then, I'd already be gone. I drove straight home, parked in the garage, and walked past my wife without saying a word. She knew the look, jaw tight, shoulders stiff, eyes locked forward. I went to the office, shut the door, and sat in the chair I bought with my first Graybridge paycheck. 17 years ago, that check was barely enough to cover rent. Back then, Graybridge wasn't in some glass tower. It was a gutted warehouse in Gastonia with 24 folding desks, a rusted-out HVAC system, and a company founder who still rolled up his sleeves and debugged code at 2 a.m. Martin Keene had the kind of brain that made other engineers shut up and listen. No ego, no corporate nonsense, just raw, obsessive focus. He interviewed me straight out of graduate school, asked one question, "Can you work through the night without whining?" I said yes, got hired the next day. I slept under my desk for the first 2 months. We were building the original encryption suite from scratch. It wasn't fancy yet, but the bones were solid. Our own language parser, sandboxed key storage, rollback resilient logs. Code that couldn't be bribed or threatened. While most companies were slapping together off-the-shelf encryption, we were tearing it down to the math. I earned my place fast. Martin had a list of people he trusted to touch the core modules. I got on that list by month 3. After that, I was the guy he called when shit broke in the middle of the night. I trained every junior that walked in. I handled crash recoveries, system rebuilds, data center fires, literally. One of our early prototypes fried a panel and took out power on the entire block. Didn't matter, we kept building. A couple years in, the military contracts started, then the international banks. After that, we were getting flagged by every cybersecurity analyst in the country. Unbreakable, they called it. That suite ran defense networks, financial cores, black site comms, all of it written in the bones of that warehouse. Then 10 years ago, Martin asked me to dinner. Just the two of us, corner booth at a quiet steakhouse up in Hickory. He didn't make small talk. He just handed me a napkin and said, "Someday the board's gonna change." I remember staring at him. "What do you mean?" "They'll bring in outsiders," he said. CEOs, investors. People who don't understand what this software actually is. They'll try to sell it, license it, hollow it out. But they won't be able to touch it unless you let them. He pulled out a single-page document, legal, dense, sealed in plastic. This clause ties IP transfer to your bonus. Every year it gets paid, your ownership expands. You hit 17 years, you own the whole thing. I blinked. You're serious? Martin nodded. You wrote it. You maintain it. They can fire you, but if the bonus clears, the rights are yours. Why me? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Because you're the only one I trust to never hand this over to the wrong people. We didn't talk much after that. He gave me the clause, told me to keep it off email, and said if anything ever felt wrong, I'd know when to act. Tyler Raines showed up like he'd just been crowned king of Silicon Valley. Tan suit, custom loafers, hair slicked back like he was auditioning for a car commercial. He walked through the office with that fake charm smile and introduced himself like none of us had been keeping the company alive while he burned through his third startup. Call me Ty, he said to a room full of engineers who didn't care. I'm all about disruption. The man couldn't even explain what a checksum was without stuttering. I sat through those early meetings listening to him butcher terms like containerization and packet flow. He called our zero-knowledge layer a login thingy once. Not one person corrected him. Not HR, not the junior PMs, not even the other execs. They all just nodded like bobbleheads and waited for him to finish talking so they could get back to work. I didn't roll my eyes. I didn't smirk. I just wrote the real plan on the whiteboard behind him and quietly saved the ship every time he tried to steer it into a wall. The only reason Graybridge didn't catch fire under Tyler's hand was because people like me kept dragging the wiring back into place behind the scenes. 6 months ago, he went on CNBC and said, word for word, "This merger can't fail. We've locked in the core tech, and the brains are staying with us." He grinned like he'd just cured cancer. I was drinking black coffee in my kitchen when I saw it live. I nearly spit it out. That line, "can't fail," flagged every legal radar Cormermac had. Suddenly, their due diligence team wasn't just looking at finance reports. They were poking through technical design history, questioning version logs, tracing contributor IDs in the source vault. The deeper they went, the more they realized only one name kept showing up from day one through 17 years, mine. So they started asking direct questions, system dependencies, origin chains, the continuity of licensing, stuff Tyler couldn't even pretend to answer. And that's when he started dodging me. First, I'd get dropped from meeting invites. Then he started showing up early to speak with partners before I got there. I caught him once telling a compliance auditor that I was semi-retired and only consulted occasionally. Right, I was pulling 12-hour days fixing bugs he didn't even know existed. The contempt in his voice wasn't subtle anymore. He hated that the more Cormermac dug, the more they leaned on me. He hated that the engineers still came to me when things got tight, that the board trusted my read on infrastructure more than his rehearsed PowerPoints. But most of all, he hated that I never challenged him publicly. I didn't call him out. I didn't fight him in front of anyone. I stayed polite, quiet, helpful, and that pissed him off more than anything. He wanted a war he could win, a loud one, with visible sides and clear blame. What he didn't see coming was patience. I waited, watched. I saw how he cut corners, rushed through audit prep, ignored contract review emails, signed off on compliance logs without reading them. I noticed when he started getting sloppy with source control tags, when he started claiming design credit in front of investors for modules he never touched. I even saw the way he dismissed Martin's name during a product retrospective. Legacy stuff, he called it. We've evolved since then. That's when something clicked for me. He didn't just resent me, he resented the whole foundation. He thought he could rebrand it, slap his name on it, and ride the wave straight through the merger like a tech messiah. But you can't wear a crown if you don't know what kingdom you're standing in. So, yeah, the contempt became mutual. He underestimated me, thought I was just the quiet old guy in the corner with dusty binders and server logs. He didn't realize that quiet doesn't mean passive. Quiet means calculating. So I started drawing the map, not out loud, not in a memo, in my head. I knew how every system tied back to my work. I knew how the founder's clause worked. I knew the chain of ownership. And more importantly, I knew that Tyler never once opened the original contracts folder Martin had marked confidential, exec level only. That clause had waited 10 years to be useful, and Tyler just kept stepping closer to it, one mistake at a time. I opened the contract that night, the one between Graybridge and Cormermac, and scrolled straight to the part that mattered, key personnel continuity. There it was, my name, line item 7. Calvin J. Becker shall remain employed through the duration of integration to ensure uninterrupted IP support. In plain English, if I walked or got pushed before the merger finalized, the deal could be delayed or even dropped. And the kicker? Graybridge had signed that clause themselves. I leaned back in my chair, eyes flicking to the corner of the screen. 47 hours, 22 minutes left on the countdown. Tyler hadn't just stepped on a landmine, he face-planted on it. What I didn't know yet, but would find out later, was that Cormermac's legal team had actually flagged this a week ago. Sent a formal warning to Graybridge, clear as day. If Cal Becker is removed before transition, expect a 6-month minimum delay and full reevaluation of IP licensing. The message went straight to the executive distro. Tyler either didn't read it or ignored it on purpose. My guess? It didn't have his name in the subject line, so he probably skimmed it and moved on. I opened my local vault, triple authenticated, offline, mirrored to a cold backup with a time lock. The licensing clause was still there, untouched. Encrypted PDF signed by Martin Keene himself. My name, my work, my ownership, tied directly to the bonus. And the system was still armed. Auto trigger on payout confirmation. Once HR processed the final payroll, that bonus would push through. Then it was mine. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, legally. I clicked into the script folder I'd kept untouched for over a decade and updated the auto email. Recipient, Cormermac Legal, Corporate Affairs Division. Subject line, licensing update, clause activation. I attached the certificate, the contract snippet, and a time-stamped IP log showing continuity of authorship going back 17 years. Then I scheduled it. 48 hours plus 5 minutes. Just enough lag for HR to finish processing. The last thing I added was a footnote. See Section 4.9 of Original Contributor Agreement, reference chain attached. I saved it, encrypted the bundle, and sat back. That was the move. No shouting, no threats, no confrontation, just paperwork. Precise, legal, undeniable. That software suite had been the spine of Graybridge since the day Martin and I wrote the first line of code. And now, the crown jewel of their merger was floating toward my hands like a slow, perfect pitch. Tyler thought the game ended when he fired me. He didn't realize that firing me started it. He wanted me gone. Fine, I was gone. Badge deactivated, laptop wiped, access revoked, all according to his timeline. But the IP chain wasn't on company drives. It was built into the contract, and that clause didn't need permission to trigger. It just needed silence. And silence was something I could do very well. I stood up, cracked my neck, and shut off the monitor. No need to hover. Everything was set. The backup systems were armed, the automail scheduled, the licensing certificate locked in with a timestamp so tight no one could fake it. All I had to do now was wait. No messages, no moves, no help. Let Tyler talk. Let the board nod. Let Cormermac dig. The trap was laid. And I'd built it slow, brick by brick, over 17 quiet, disciplined years. The next morning, I left my phone on the counter, laced up my boots, and walked 3 blocks down to a diner called Wilma's. Corner booth, strong coffee, no questions. The kind of place where nobody cares what you do for a living, as long as you tip decent and don't block the syrup tray. I sat down, ordered black coffee and eggs over hard, and opened the news app on my tablet. Still quiet. Market hadn't moved yet. Graybridge stock was flat. No leaks, no flags. Just business as usual. I gave it another hour. By 8:30, I had a new email sitting in my inbox from a name I didn't recognize. Laura Mendez, finance beat reporter out of Raleigh. Subject line, merger complications? She wrote 2 lines. Hearing chatter from investor groups about Graybridge licensing issues. Anything you can share? I didn't hesitate. I typed back, ask about Section 14. Then I closed the thread. That was all she needed. Let her start pulling that thread in public. Back home, I refreshed my inbox. And there it was. An email from Cormermac Legal, external to Graybridge Legal, subject, urgent, Confirm licensing rights. Someone in a rush had fat-fingered the CC field. I had been copied. I opened the thread. My name wasn't mentioned directly, but I knew the tone. Sharp, formal, and pressing. The body of the message said, "Please confirm original authorship and legal ownership of the Graybridge Encryption Suite IP. This is time-sensitive as per Merger Clause 4.9. They were asking for the license certificate, the one only I had. I scrolled down. Another reply had already come in from Alan Price, a board member who hadn't said 10 words to me in 2 years. He was now looped in and asking, "Can we verify who holds the latest cert? What file system is it housed in?" I leaned back in my chair and let out one dry laugh. Tyler had no idea which cabinet it was in. Because it wasn't in any cabinet, it wasn't in any system he could touch. And the one man who knew exactly where it was and when it would unlock was sitting at his kitchen table eating a reheated biscuit with jam. I didn't reply. I didn't forward anything. I didn't call anyone. I didn't even open the secure vault. That was the whole point. Let the scramble begin. Let the board start sweating. Let Tyler run circles trying to remember which intern he blamed for documentation cleanup last quarter. I sat perfectly still, ate my food, watched the inbox pile up with half-explained questions and missed calls. The real move wasn't confrontation. It was silence. No noise, no signal. Just space for their own mistakes to echo louder. Every reply they sent just confirmed one thing. They didn't know where the certificate was. And worse, they didn't know who did. By the time they figured out the answer, the timer would hit 0. And it'd be too late. Phone rang at 7:11 a.m. Sharp. No ID, just unknown caller. I let it buzz once, twice, then picked up. His voice came through tight, raw. "Where's the certificate?" No good morning, no pleasantries, just panic. I took a sip of coffee before answering. "Which system are you looking in?" Silence, then a shaky breath. "All of them. Every drive, every archive. I even had someone check the old backup vaults from 2009. It's not there." "No," I said. "It's not. We need it, Cal. You know that. This thing's unraveling." "I'm not with the company," I said calmly. "Remember?" He ignored that. "We'll fix that. Look, we'll reverse the paperwork, reinstate you, full title. You want retroactive comp? I'll get it cleared." I kept my tone flat. "This isn't about comp." "Then what the hell is this about?" His voice cracked. First real crack I'd heard from him since he swaggered into Graybridge like a prince. I let the pause stretch out. "Read your contract," I said. "All of it. Section 14, paragraph 6. Another beat. I could hear him fumbling, maybe opening something, maybe realizing he'd never looked that far down. "This isn't how it was supposed to go," he muttered. "Cormermac's already demanding verification. We can't give it to them without you. Should have thought about that before you tried to erase 17 years of history with one folder drop." "Don't do this," he snapped. "You're nuking your own legacy." "No," I said. "I'm protecting it. You don't understand how bad this could get?" "I understand better than you," I cut in. "You handed me my exit 48 hours before the clause matures. That wasn't luck, Tyler. That was arrogance. And you don't even realize how deep you're in." He went quiet, breathing heavy now. "This wasn't personal," he said finally, weaker. "It was just business, cleaning house, tightening margins before the merger." I almost laughed. "You fired the only guy who can prove you own the crown jewel of the company, and now you're shocked it's slipping through your fingers?" I could feel it, the unraveling. Not just the deal, but him. For the first time, he wasn't smug. He wasn't loud. He was just a man staring down a disaster he built with his own 2 hands. "I need you to come in," he said, almost whispering. "Help us fix this?" I shook my head, even though he couldn't see it. "It's too late. We'll make it right. I'll go to the board. Don't bother. The board's already seen the email chain. And you've got about 31 hours left. Cal, please." Click. I ended the call and turned my phone face down. He'd just figured out what Martin meant when he said someday the board will change. And I wasn't lifting a damn finger to save him from it. The next morning, I woke up early, brewed a fresh pot of coffee, and pulled up the market dashboard. Graybridge stock had dropped 12% before the opening bell. The ticker was blinking red across every financial site I followed. Unconfirmed licensing dispute, key contributor exit, IP validation pending. No one had the full picture yet, but the panic had already taken root. By 10 a.m., 3 analyst firms had downgraded Graybridge's rating to hold with caution. At 10:17, CNBC ran a short segment on the air. Rumors are swirling about an IP disruption tied to Graybridge's merger with Cormermac Data. The identity of the rights holder is now in question. That's all it took. It spread like wildfire after that. Screenshots of our system logs, legacy dev credits, even a blurry photo of me from some tech conference in Denver, all over Twitter, Reddit, investor forums. People asking who I was, why I left, and what Section 14 actually said. Cormermac stayed quiet until just before lunch. Then they dropped a carefully worded statement. We are evaluating certain risk clauses within the agreement related to software licensing and contributor continuity. No further comment at this time. Translation: they were already pulling the chute. At 11:42 a.m., I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. No name, just the message, "We need you back." Not under Tyler. I didn't respond. I let the silence speak for me. By 1 o'clock, a photo leaked of Tyler leaving the Graybridge building. His face was pale, and for once, he didn't have a camera smile ready. I turned the volume up on the TV and watched a Bloomberg anchor read from a breaking alert. Sources close to the matter say Graybridge executives are now divided over the handling of personnel leading up to this licensing dispute. Some board members are exploring leadership restructuring options. They weren't just bleeding, they were circling the drain. At 2:13 p.m., sharp, my phone rang again. This time, it showed a contact I did recognize. Thomas Everett, CEO of Cormermac Data. I answered. His voice was clean, direct. "Mr. Becker, thank you for taking the call. Of course. We've been reviewing the licensing materials you sent over, and I want to speak plainly. Graybridge failed to disclose a fundamental clause in your contributor agreement. This exposes us to substantial liability." I waited. Let him say it. "So, we're terminating the merger, effective immediately. No apology, no anger, just business, cold and clean." Then he continued. "That said, your certificate is valid, your authorship is undeniable, and we're still very interested in licensing your encryption suite." He paused. "We'd like to explore a new deal, directly with you, via your LLC, independent of Graybridge, full control, full attribution." I didn't move. "You'd maintain ownership. We'd license for a 5-year term. You pick the conditions, payment structure's flexible." My hand didn't shake. My pulse didn't spike. I was calm, steady, grounded. This was what 17 years of quiet precision looked like. "I'm open to it," I said. "Send the paperwork." "Will do." Click, no drama, no debate. Just the clean snap of a dying empire and the birth of something better. By 3 o'clock, headlines had changed. Cormermac terminates merger, eyes new agreement with former Graybridge architect. I didn't call anyone, didn't gloat. I just powered down the tablet and let it sit there on the kitchen table. Graybridge was eating itself alive from the inside. And Tyler Raines? He was no longer a prince. He was just a man with a last name, and nothing under it. The agreement landed in my inbox that evening. Top-line terms, clean layout, Cormermac letterhead. I scrolled through it slowly, letting the details sink in. They weren't just making a play. They were showing respect. Full licensing control under Becker Tech, LLC. My authorship formally acknowledged across every market they plan to deploy in. No sub-licensing without written approval. 5-year exclusivity with optional renewals. And the number they offered up front? It was more than the last 10 years of Graybridge bonuses combined. I scrolled back to the top and reread the title. Licensing and Deployment Agreement for Graybridge Encryption Suite, V1 to V3.2. They used my original naming conventions, even kept the internal version tags. That wasn't just a deal, that was recognition. Outside, the news was everywhere. CNBC, Bloomberg, even tech blogs that hadn't mentioned Graybridge in years. Headlines were brutal. Merger dead, Cormermac walks after licensing breakdown. Tech golden boy Tyler Raines under fire after IP blunder. Founders clause torpedoes $210 million deal. I switched on the TV just long enough to see Tyler trying to walk into Graybridge HQ through the front lobby. Cameras were already waiting. One reporter shoved a mic in his face. "Mr. Raines, did you understand the contract language you signed?" Did you fire the certificate holder? He didn't answer, just kept his head down and shoved through the glass doors like they weren't filming his fall in real time. Back inside, the boardroom lights were still on. You could see figures pacing behind the windows. I knew what that meant. Meetings, blame, succession talks. Someone would float interim leadership before the end of the night. Tyler was a liability now, not a prince, not even a puppet, just a burned-out name with nowhere left to hide. At 11:57 p.m., I logged into my offline system. The secure timer blinked on screen, counting down the final 3 minutes. No one could stop it now. Not legal, not finance, not even the board. At 12 a.m., exactly, the screen flashed once. Then a new line appeared in bold, transfer complete. Ownership logs updated, certificate time stamped, encrypted signature verified. I took a screenshot and emailed it to my attorney with 2 words. Confirmed, it's done. Legally, irreversibly mine. No more contingencies, no more shared permissions, no more executive overreach. Just one name attached to the code now, mine. I closed the terminal and leaned back in the chair I'd had since my first year at Graybridge. Same leather, same creak when you shifted weight. A reminder of everything that started in that warehouse 17 years ago. Tyler had spent months trying to erase that past, rebrand it, rename it, push it under slick marketing and lazy jargon. He thought legacy was something you could spin, but legacy isn't PR, it's code, contracts, consequences. He made his move. This was mine. Checkmate. The headlines hit by sunrise. Cormermac Data Partners with Becker Tech LLC for exclusive encryption rights. Former Graybridge architect emerges as key player in industry shakeup. I sat at the kitchen table, same spot as always, drinking black coffee from a chipped mug I'd had since the warehouse days. No press release from me, no tweet, just the facts on the page. My phone lit up every few seconds. Old colleagues, former engineers, quiet allies from the board who never said much but saw everything. Some texts came with long paragraphs, others just said, "Well played." I answered a few, the rest could wait. I didn't owe anyone a damn thing. Not an explanation, not a response, not even a smile. The software I built, line by line, patch by patch, was mine now. Every protocol, every update, every defense layer still running silently in networks around the world. Mine, no board, no Reigns family, no realignment strategy to squeeze the soul out of the product. Just me, my terms, and a signature that couldn't be touched. I flipped through the signed agreement one more time. It was real. It was done. Cormermac wasn't looking for a mascot. They wanted results, and they understood something Graybridge never did. Real power doesn't come from branding. It comes from ownership. Somewhere out there, Tyler was probably trying to spin this as a misunderstanding, maybe blaming interns or talking about shifting leadership. Didn't matter. His name was radioactive now. Industry folks knew exactly what happened. He didn't lose to some market swing or tech bubble. He lost to a contract he never bothered to read. I didn't need to rub it in. Sometimes the best revenge is done quietly. No speeches, no warnings, no final showdown in a boardroom. Just a slow, silent unraveling. Let them watch everything fall apart from the inside while I built something better. I clicked open the final PDF again, just to see it one last time. Cal Becker, IP rights holder. There it was. The clause worked exactly as it was built to. And so did I.